This is the day that Max showed Lewis who is the boss.
Verstappen on Alonso, and there he is!
Let's get into where it all started and how it came to be that a driver from Stevenage, England, and someone as young as the Dutch Max Verstappen came to being the next Prost and Senna. Since debuting at Toro Rosso in 2015, Max had always been on a collision course with Lewis. Hamilton was dominating the sport post-Vettel era, and aside from a few entanglements with Nico Rosberg, no one was truly putting their hand up to take on the champ. With Hamilton cruising to championship win after championship win, he was on top of the world, and anyone willing to take his crown would have to go through him.
Treacherous the conditions are, Lewis Hamilton on pole position.
But he wouldn't stay safe for long. Verstappen had been raised to become a champion, and he has had all the resources put into him from as young as the age of 4. Verstappen had a somewhat aggressive personality on and off the track, which showed his willingness to become the best.
Max Verstappen is champion of the world!
He would lay it all on the line on every Sunday Grand Prix. With Verstappen in a Red Bull seat by 2016, Hamilton was still collecting trophies, and the Red Bull had to feed on the scraps left by the Mercedes.
Hamilton has more wins than any other driver in Formula One history.
But Max showed he was ready from his first race in the Red Bull seat, and thanks to a crash between Rosberg and Hamilton in Barcelona in 2016.
And it's Nico Rosberg and Hamilton's onto the grass, and Hamilton's had a massive crash, and he's crashed into his teammate. The two Mercedes come together.
Max would be the first one to draw blood and take one from the Mercedes. The following few races it was back to scraps, with a win here and there, but nothing truly started until Verstappen made the first move, overtaking Lewis in a weaker car during the 2017 Malaysian Grand Prix to draw the line and show the future 7-time champ that there is a new kid on the block. It continued in 2018 when Verstappen and Hamilton came together in Bahrain, which left the Red Bull with a puncture and limping back to the pits. It was during this year that Max began showing he had intentions of competing, which was proven by the attempt of a high-risk pass in China. However, the 2019 season is when things really began heating up, as they had a battle at the Monaco GP, which spilled over to the Hungaroring a few weeks later. In 2020, Verstappen would win one of the two races at Silverstone, beating the Mercedes, and continue to snatch a victory now and again.
Verstappen gives Red Bull the win! Their first here at Silverstone since 2012. The checker flag's in sight. Verstappen wins the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and rounds off the season.
However, Lewis was inarguably the best Formula One car ever made and simply wrapped up the championship as early as Turkey, even lapping teammate Bottas in the process. But this is where it all ended for Hamilton and started for Verstappen. With Verstappen raising the pressure going into the 2021 season, it was Red Bull and team principal Christian Horner who started telling the public they believed they had a competitive car. This would continue and start a rivalry between Horner and Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff, a rivalry that quickly spread to the drivers on the first race of the season. Verstappen made his intentions clear as early as Bahrain when he went wheel-to-wheel with Hamilton going into turn 4. Verstappen would come out ahead in the skirmish, but the stewards ruled that the move was illegal and Verstappen was forced to concede the position back to Hamilton. Lewis came out on top and started the season with a lead in the championship, but Lewis wasn't able to turn this into a trend, with Max winning the second race, dealing a huge mental blow to Hamilton. In the next two races, Lewis was back and it looked certain that he would dominate once again, but then Max turned up the heat. In Monaco, Verstappen won, taking the lead in the championship. The season between the two rivals became intense, and the likes of Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas found themselves being sacrificed to help their teammates win races. Verstappen's race wins were stacking up, getting inside of Hamilton's head, who hadn't experienced such rivalry in years. The season showed us some insane battles and questionable actions, but then came the moment that it boiled over. Silverstone, Verstappen on pole, and Hamilton a solid second on the grid. Spectators received received a fierce duel between both drivers, but come Copsey corner, Hamilton and Verstappen collided, sending Max into the wall at a whopping 180 miles per hour. The abundant celebration of Lewis sent shockwaves to the Red Bull garage and left Max furious and even more determined. Then came the new edition, the Zandvoort Grand Prix, back on the calendar for the first time since 1985. Max gave his orange home crowd the show they were all hoping for. Verstappen didn't just win the race, he dominated, as Lewis crossed the line more than 20 seconds later. Verstappen was definitely leading the championship, a lead he was unwilling to give up and was willing to do everything it took. The battle for first place continued, and the following race another crazy battle turned out controversial. It was in Monza, with Hamilton doing the undercut and overtaking Verstappen. The British driver belted out of the pit lane and both drivers came together at turn 1. With Verstappen landing his car on top of the Mercedes, neither was able to recover and had to settle for retirement. This would be the first time Lewis retired in nearly 3 seasons and proved the importance of the halo. But the real battle of this season came in the closing rounds. Before entering the Brazil Grand Prix, Max was 19 points ahead, and Lewis's dominance was questioned. With the championship still able to fall either way, Mercedes introduced a new power unit, with more upgrades in power than any other car on the grid. This would transform the Mercedes into an absolute beast, starting from the back of the grid and winning races as if nothing happened. Lewis was on a charge, and Verstappen was desperately trying to keep the 7-time champ from retaking the lead in the standings. Things boiled over in Brazil and Saudi, with Hamilton taking 2 controversial victories in which the drivers collided or pushed each other off the track on both occasions. This would set up a final race in Dubai, with both drivers entering on level footing and the winner to be the one to take home the championship. This race will enter the F1 history books because of its controversy. The race and the championship were in the hands of Hamilton, but Verstappen kept pushing and Red Bull was quick to respond to the crash of Latifi, with Mercedes keeping Hamilton out and the decision to have one more racing lap. The beast that was Mercedes got tamed. Lewis cracked with a total media silence and refusing to visit the F1 gala. Many were left wondering if he would continue racing. Max Verstappen got under the skin of Lewis, which signified a new era in Formula 1. But as the 2022 season started, the new champ did have something to prove, being a true champion. Things didn't go as planned when the 2022 season started and Ferrari was looking to be the new contenders. A technical blunder by Mercedes left Hamilton driving a car that didn't have any side pods and would frequently lack the aerodynamic prowess of the prancing horse and, most importantly, the Red Bull. Not only that, Lewis was outpaced by the new guy at Mercedes regularly, making critics wonder if 2021 was the end of Lewis's career. He tried, but 2022 saw no victories for Hamilton. He would see his 2021 season rival Max Verstappen not only winning the championship but dominating. Max would even go to lap his rival from 2021 and streak to victory, sealing his driver's championship by the time Suzuka rolled around. The record set by Hamilton and his impressive rate of victories will remain in the history books, with Max a long way off to showing the world that he was the greatest driver to ever live and compete with the likes of Senna, Schumacher and Hamilton in greatest of all time conversations. Max did start writing records in 2022, most notably scoring the most points anyone has ever scored in a championship, and winning by increasing margins like the 20-second victory over his teammate in Belgium after starting the race from the lower end of the grid. Max was in second place after the first third of the race and leading by the halfway point. He simply breezed past Hamilton, which was in stark contrast to the rivalry of the previous year. But 2023 is when Max would shatter every on-track record possible in one season, with Mercedes touting a new car with an increased ability to challenge at the front and Ferrari fading down the order to the midfield. Verstappen began his charge. After losing to Perez in the Saudi Arabian and Azerbaijan Grand Prix, the charge was in full swing, winning 10 races on the trot and shattering a record previously held by Sebastian Vettel for most consecutive races won in a season. He would drop a race to Sainz in Singapore, but it was smooth sailing into Abu Dhabi as the Red Bull kept on winning, finishing the season with 19 victories in the 22-race season. This would be the day that Verstappen ultimately showed that the driver matters more than the car, and that Hamilton should watch out as the rest of his records are about to fall. Verstappen, who turns 27 in 2024, still has a long way to go if he wants to continue racing until he's 35. The Dutch driver has indicated that he does not intend to remain in the sport this long, but by the time his contract ends in 2028, he could have secured 7 championships, which leaves him with the option of going for the record. Since Verstappen is a generational talent like Hamilton, Senna and Schumacher, he might be the only one in the next couple of decades who could position himself to become the greatest of all time without so much debate surrounding him. Will Hamilton ever come back from the psychological blow Verstappen gave him by winning the championship-deciding race where Lewis seemed to be dominating? The future will tell. But if we look at the cumulative level of driving over the past 4 years and consider what each driver has done with the tools they were armed with, Max seems to have done more, and his dedication to the sport seems to be at an all-time high. Lewis has been dabbling in numerous ventures away from the track, and it could be argued that his passion for the sport, and most importantly winning, has faded. But what do you think? Is there a time the Dutch driver absolutely stamped down his authority, or it will take another couple of seasons for him to absolutely show he's the best? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to check out this video with the 20 wildest moments in Formula 1 history. They are insane.